Well, hello everybody. I'm making something a bit different here. I have an indigo vat. Actually, I have several indigo vats that haven't been working very well because I can't keep them warm enough. I mix the indigo up in these glass beakers, and then I use a fermentation type of vat, and I add madder root and wheat bran and sugar and a bit of yeast to help the fermentation work. But because I can't keep it warm enough, you have to keep it like between over 30 degrees Celsius higher than that to make the fermentation work. And because the weather gets cold, my vat continually cools down, and I have it sitting on top of a beer mat to keep it warm. So I thought that I would make, because I do nail binding, I thought I would make a sock to cover it up and keep it warm. And that sort of seems to be working, because I put it on last night and that was about 28 degrees, and I put it on overnight and it went up to 34, and it started to bubble a little bit. Here you can see that there's some bubbles forming. I don't think it's ready actually to produce indigo dye yet, but I'll test a little bit. No, it's not. It's a little bit of blue starting to happen, so but that's a bit promising, but I'm going to have to keep it brewing for a couple of days. But meanwhile, I'm going to put this back onto the mat because it's cooling down quickly. And then I'm going to keep finishing. I'm going to make this longer so it's the length of the whole beaker to keep it warm and toasty. So maybe I will be able to make indigo. Okay, now I have to carry this over there and not spill it all over the place. Oh dear. If you hear a crash, this does not go well. So okay, where did I leave off? So I've just been using leftover yarns from my stash that I dyed a long time ago and really wasn't using them for anything. So this is actually a good thing to put this stuff into. The nice thing about null binding is you can use little bits and short bits of wool and use it all up and make something instead of throwing all those little pieces away. Ugh. I never use knots when I'm joining yarn. You can use this technique for knitting and crochet as well, rather than putting knots or trying to knit to the end of the row and start a new thread. It's called a Russian join, and you just it's like splicing the yarn together and spinning it back, rolling it between your hands. But it's easier just to run a needle through the already spun yarn. And put it through the eye of this needle. Form a loop and pull this through. and then pull this end through that part of the yarn. And then do the same thing on the other side. I think I'm only going to do about half an hour today because I don't want the vat to cool down too much. It's already, the temperature on it is already dropping, and then I lose the fermentation, so I want to get the little thing warmed up. And maybe I can make blue in a couple of days. Oh. Okay, I'm using a stitch. I think it's called the Mammen Stitch. I get these things mixed up all the time. But I'm picking up a new thread from the previous row, the old thread, and then I have 2 stitches on my thumb, and I pick up 2 from behind. Turn the needle around and come back through. So it's a 2 plus 2 stitch. So a new stitch, an old stitch. Right now there's 2 on my thumb. There's 3 stitches on my thumb. So I'm going to pick up this one. I could drop it behind and pick it up, but basically it's the same movement. Pick up that one, and then through the 2 that are on my thumb and pull it through. To be able to tell which is the last stitch, the oldest stitch is, if you look here, this is the oldest stitch. So you want to pick that one up, then the one from your thumb, and then come back through. So the oldest one is this one. Pull that through there. Okay, I think I'm going to change color for the next row. I'm getting tired of yellow. Okay, time to change color. So again, I'm joining the yarn with what's called a Russian join stitch, and I run the needle through a couple of times through the old yarn, and I pass the end of the thread through that loop in the needle and leave that loop open and put the new yarn through there and pull this through. Basically, this is like splicing yarn together, but an easier way of doing it. And there's no knots, and it's not going to come apart. There we go. Okay, a new yarn, an old yarn, one off my thumb, so there's two remaining on my thumb, and one more from behind. And then I turn the needle and come back through. Oops. Okay, my hands are getting a bit tired, so I'm going to stop here. Put these things away. I'm going to bring my indigo pot back over here and put the little sleeve on it. Okay. Yeah, so while I've been doing that, the temperature's dropped on it, and you can see that the foam has kind of stopped bubbling, so it definitely needs to have the extra heat source on it. And I think I'm going to give it a bit more sugar. And a bit of yeast. Give it a stir. Oops. I'll put the little sleevey blanket around it again and warm it back up. Okay, there. Make probably another couple of rows tomorrow. So I'll put this back over onto the heating mat, the beer mat, and put the lid on it, and hopefully it starts to react again. Yeah, so the temperature on that had dropped down to 28 degrees, so hopefully it can bounce back up to 35 soon with the little sleeve and the heat on it. And we'll see what happens to this tomorrow. Thanks for stopping in.